Hello, Comics Alternative fans. Before we start with the episode, we want to invite all of you to check out our Patreon campaign.
That's right. Go to www.patreon.com/comicsalternative for more details. There you'll find more information about the campaign and the cool rewards levels we have.
For as little as $1 a month, you can help us maintain good quality comics talk, and the more you contribute, the more perks you get.
These include monthly podcast episodes exclusive to Patreon supporters, as well as the chance to help us choose which books we review on the show. So be sure to visit www.patreon.com/comicsalternative and become one of our proud podcast patrons.
Yeah, and now on with the show.
This is the Comics Alternative on location at Fan Expo Dallas 2015.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative on location. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this On Location show, I have a series of brief interviews that I did with a variety of creators at Fan Expo Dallas. So this used to be called the Dallas Comic-Con, but last year it was acquired by Fan Expo. So now the big May event of the Dallas Con is called Fan Expo Dallas. And Andy, I had a lot of great conversations. But before we get to those, we should let all of our listeners know that this episode of the Comics Alternative is brought to you by the wonderful folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There you'll find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off cover price, and every single month you'll find incredible, unbelievable specials. Sometimes those discounts are at 40% off cover price, sometimes 45%, sometimes 50% off, but many times the discounts are more impressive than that.
And as we record this, the specials for the month of June have not gone up yet, but if May is any indication, you're going to have a lot of serious bundles to consider here. You're going to have to go to the website and check them out for yourself, and you won't be sorry.
That's right. And it's not only bundles that they have on special every month, but individual issues. And in fact, there's so many we could devote an entire episode to just listing the specials every month at Discount Comic Book Service. But we don't. You have to go to the website to find out what they are for June. So go to dcbservice.com for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do go there, please be sure to drop them an email and let them know that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
Yes, do that.
So, Andy, we're going to hear some interesting conversations that I had. And we'll get to them in a moment, but I want to list the people that I spoke with. In the order that you're going to hear them. Now, first, I spoke with Robert Wilson IV, and if listeners of the podcast think that name sounds familiar, well, it's because not only have I talked with him for the podcast a number of times in the past, but also last year, Andy Kunka and I reviewed Knuckleheads, which was a title of his that came out first as a digital, and then it was collected in book form. So I talked with him, and then after that, we have a conversation with another creator that I've spoken with a number of times at cons, Joe Eisma of Morning Glories fame. He's always friendly, always willing to take the time to talk with me. And then I spoke with a variety of people for the very first time, some of whose work I did not even know existed before I met them at the con. So, for example, there is a webcomic called Angry Cuddles. And I spoke with Stephen and Mike about Angry Cuddles. And one of the things that caught my attention about this, Andy, is not only is it a webcomic, but it's something that they created a podcast based on, their webcomic, Angry Cuddles. So I talked with them. And then after that, a couple of publisher writers, Vince and Mark, they're behind the company Stratum. And one of the titles from Stratum is The Threat. So they talked with me about that title. And then after that, I spoke briefly with Steve Epting of Velvet fame and also Captain America and Winter Soldier. And then following that, I had a conversation with Gemma Young. She has a webcomic called Children of Eldair. And then a creator named Hector Rodriguez. A couple of years ago, he started a comic called El Peso Hero, and it is a superhero narrative, he says, in the mold of Nick Cage. But it takes place in the border region between Mexico and Texas, and so there's a lot in there that is very socially, politically, and culturally conscious. So we had a great conversation about that. And then I wrap up with a brief interview with Ellen Natalie. She has a webcomic called Furry Experience. And so all of these were great conversations to have. Now, I should point out that in my brief conversation with Steve Epting, there was a little glitch in the recording, so we go right into my conversation with Steve Epting. The part where I say I'm at the table of Steve Epting apparently didn't record like I thought. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and listen to these interviews.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear these.
I am at the table of Robert Wilson IV, and we have talked a number of times on past cons. How has this year's Dallas Fan Expo been for you, Robert?
It's been a really good show so far. It's interesting to see the show kind of grow and expand into a wider audience. I feel like I've seen a lot more kids and maybe people that you wouldn't traditionally think of as like the nerd or Comic-Con crowd.
So you say, at least with the Dallas Con, more of a variety, younger audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that is kind of the trend that I'm seeing at most cons, but it's really, really evident here.
Well, what other cons do you... I know you're in the DFW area. What other cons do you usually get out to?
Heroes Con, I'm at pretty much every year. I love Heroes Con to death. I do Emerald City as often as I can. I do Baltimore as often as I can, and I just recently did Comic Palooza in Houston for the first time, which was a really interesting and fun con. So I try to get us around, like I said, just as much as I can.
I think last time we talked, it was actually last year, a year ago this time, at the Dallas Fan Expo, and I don't know if it had just come out or it was about to come out, the collection Knuckleheads in print. So how has that been?
Yeah, it's been really, really great to have Knuckleheads available, in physical form and all collected together. It's something that Brian and Jordan and I and Thomas have been working on for so long that it's super gratifying to be able to have it all in a piece, and when someone asks what's Knuckleheads about, be able to just hand it to them, flip through. So yeah, it's been great.
Well, how did that process work for you? I mean, I know that early on you guys had hard copies of Knucklehead issues, but, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for the most part, the subsequent issues were all digital, and then they were collected together. So did you find that a feasible business model for this title?
Yeah, it was interesting. Doing all digital for the single issues definitely took a financial load off of us as the creators, because we published that first issue, self-published it, and man, it's so difficult to recoup physical printing costs when you don't have a distribution system in place like Diamond or whatever. So it really is Monkey Brain is what allowed the book to be finished,
Yeah. One of the things I found is with a lot of Monkey Brain properties, they're there digitally, and then they're collected by larger publishers like Image, like IDW, like Dark Horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, we met the guys from IDW at Comic-Con, I guess it was 2013, and just more or less immediately, kind of hit it off, and very shortly thereafter, kind of got a deal together for the collection. So it was super quick, super low pressure, low stress. It just kind of fell into place.
Well, another big thing that's happened since you and I last talked is Bitch Planet number 3, where you do the interior. So, man, what's that been like?
Honestly, it's been kind of overwhelming. It was such a great process working with Kelly Sue and Valentine and Lauren, the editor. Like, the whole team was just so welcoming and awesome. And then the response, I frankly wasn't prepared for the kind of response that the book got. It was overwhelming. It's so gratifying to be a small part of something that means so much to people. And, that's what I would hope to be able to do as a creator, to be able to touch people's lives, to be able to maybe be some piece of encouragement to them, or to maybe get them to consider their lives in a different way. So it's been a really, really fantastic process, and like I said, just basically totally overwhelming.
Now, do you feel that after this issue of Bitch Planet number 3 that you have gotten much wider exposure? Because Bitch Planet was making quite a splash even with issue number 1. So have you found the attention that you've been getting significantly increased since that issue?
I think so. I mean, there is definitely a tremendous amount of attention the month that the issue came out. And I feel like that has carried over to some degree. So, yeah.
Any residuals, let's say, interest in like a virus or Knuckleheads or other work?
Yeah, sure. That, and it just opened a ton of doors for future work as well. I mean, I was used to having to hustle just to get the opportunity to pitch. And, I mean, I've had multiple publishers offer stuff to me, which has been, again, kind of overwhelming.
Well, how did the Bitch Planet gig come about?
Well, I met Kelly Sue at Heroes Con, I feel like maybe 2 years ago. And, we just got along and talked about our kids, and I think I just thanked her for Captain Marvel, because I had just recently had a daughter, and that kind of thing really brings into focus the types of inequality and sexism in not just comics, but really in Western media in general, that feels normal to us because it's what has always been there. And it's really refreshing and exciting that we're in a time that hopefully we're growing past that, collectively. And it still does mean a lot to me to have superhero books like Captain Marvel that kind of embody the kind of aspirational ideals that the superhero genre was built on, pretty squarely aimed at women, at my daughter. So I just thanked her for that, and I think it was probably the very next time that I met her at Emerald City, she asked me if I'd be interested in doing an issue, and I said, yes, when do I start?
So any future issues of Bitch Planet?
I don't think so. I think they are doing a different artist for each of the fill-in issues, but I mean, if they asked, I'd go for it, absolutely.
Now, without giving anything away that you don't want to or can't give away, you were saying that working with Kelly Sue on Bitch Planet has kind of opened doors that weren't there before. What possibilities, what are we going to be seeing from Robert Wilson IV in the very near future then?
Yeah, well, I've actually already finished drawing a little thing for Dark Horse, which I believe is going to run in DHP. I don't know the issues or anything like that yet. But and I'm also doing another project that hasn't been announced or anything with my good buddy Christopher Sabella. So I'm super, super excited about it.
Well, listen, so next year when we come back to the con, you'll have even more things going on that we can talk about from the previous year this year.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. Well, I will be at HeroesCon, so I'll see you down there in a few weeks then.
Awesome. See you in a few weeks, Derek.
Here at Dallas Fan Expo at the table of Joe Eisma. And if it's a Dallas con, then I have to talk to Joe because you're always at the Dallas con because you're a local guy.
Yeah, I try to always be at these shows. I missed one a couple of years ago because I was had a convention out of town. But yeah, normally I'm here.
Yeah. So now you were telling me earlier today off mic some of the differences between this year's con and last year and then the previous Dallas cons. What were they?
Well, it's definitely much more crowded this year. I think I mentioned to you, like, I still remember when it was in the hallway in Richardson, and it was a lot more, I don't know, everybody was kind of all in the same area. And now the artist alley is huge. I mean, we're getting to, like, New York Comic Con proportions here. So it's a lot more foot traffic, a lot crazier, and everybody that I know is just really a lot busier.
Now, I was talking just a moment ago with Robert Wilson IV, and he was saying that he's noticed that the demographic is significantly younger over the past couple of years. Are you finding the same?
Yeah, definitely seeing more kids as the years go by with this show, and that's great. I mean, I'm glad parents are bringing their children. I mean, I know my son, my oldest, he loves to come up here and dress up in his whatever. He's 6 years old, so whatever costume he's into at the moment, that's what he wants to wear.
So now, what about attention to Morning Glories? What kind of fan reaction are you getting here at Dallas?
You get some really dedicated fans. I mean, there are people that just come up to me and they just gush about the series, or that they come up and they're like, "Tell me what's going on," So I
fill in the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. So I get both ends of the spectrum, and then I get the really diehard fans. I had one yesterday wanted me to draw her as a student in the book. So that was the commission that I did for her, and that was, it gets to be kind of surreal.
Yeah. Do you get people asking you to give spoilers of, fill in the gaps, what's going on here? Can you explain this to me?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, and it's funny. And our readers are really kind of, they're very passionate, and they really want to know every little mystery. And so, they see me at a show, they try to think that they can put me on the spot, but, I know about as much as they do.
So you're kept in the dark as the artist as well.
Oh, yeah. Like, Nick is very guarded with his plot and doesn't really share it with anybody.
Now, do you see in the future, because something like this like Morning Glory seems to beg for, let's say, an ancillary text that has a variety, like an encyclopedia, let's say the Morning Glories Encyclopedia, that gives backstories, that has details, that have character analysis and whatnot. I mean, is something like that in the works, or have you guys seriously discussed this?
Yeah, we actually, the first year we were out, we solicited a book called The Yearbook, which is going to be just that. It was going to be character bios and, school info and stuff like that. For whatever reason or another, it never came together, and it was eventually canceled. So I would love to do something like that. And we really do have lots of opportunities in our hardcovers for our back matter to put stuff like that in, and I'm really pushing for something like that. Nick is, he's very, stingy with his secrets, so he doesn't want to give up all that info. So that's why it hasn't appeared yet.
Now, I know you're now, are you calling it like the second volume or the second series now? Okay, the second season. And what issue are you up to now?
I'm drawing 47. Issue 46 is out next week.
Yeah. So and I know I've asked you this before, how much longer do you think that this will go, or how longer do you guys want to sustain this?
Well, I mean, our second season ends at number 50, which is 25 issues, which our first season was 25 issues. So the next two seasons, which we have planned for, will be also 25, for a total of about 100 issues.
So right now it's going to at least 100.
Yeah, that's the idea. At least 100 total issues.
Well, not only do not many Image titles reach that number, but not many of any publisher's title reaches that number. I mean, I think, 25 and 50 are admirable today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who knows? We may reevaluate things. We may renumber. I don't know. But our trades are always going to be, numbered the same, up to volume 20, whatever it's going to end up at. So, it just kind of depends on where we're at. We talked about relaunching with the number 1 at the start of our second season. So we're still kind of entertaining those notions about which way to go forward.
So maybe with season 3 you could, or maybe you won't, start with another number 1?
We might. It's a possibility. Nick and I, every time we near the end of a season, we start that conversation starts to crop up. So we'll see.
What are the considerations? I mean, what are the pros and cons? What kind of conversations do you have about just something as simple as numbering?
Well, it's weird because, a lot of it, the pros are, reader loyalty, there's that whole aspect of, reaching higher numbers. But then we really do talk to retailers a lot, and we really value their opinion. And what they have told us is, over the years, a number 1, a lower number or whatever, is easier to sell than something that's in issue 63 or whatever,
Okay, now another big news since we last talked is that, of course, when we last talked, I think it was in February at the Dallas Con, and you knew this, but I didn't know it, but you were doing one of the covers for the new Archie relaunch.
Yeah.
So now, that's been solicited, news is out there. What was that like?
It was amazing. I had done a cover for them before for their superhero line, Black Circle, and I thought that was kind of the end of it. I mean, I had a great time working with the Archie editorial. They were great people. But then Alex Shigura, who's kind of like the head of the whole Archie Comics division there, emailed me out of the blue and said, hey, would you like to do a variant? And I was like, of course I would. I mean, I kind of read Archie off and on. It was really more my sister's thing growing up. So it was almost like, I had to call her up and tell her what I was doing, So, but yeah, so it just kind of came together really quickly, and it just sketched out a few ideas. We did it based on the old James Dean movie, Rebel Without a Cause. To kind of give it just like a little, kind of kick or whatever. And, yeah, it was really fun.
Now, were you given much of a directive in terms of doing the variant cover? I was just talking with Peter Bagg, and he was saying that they were suggesting a couple of things to him, but then with that information, they kind of let him go.
Yeah, it's about the same for me. I mean, they kind of gave me kind of a general idea. What they told me is that they really just wanted to focus on Archie. They didn't want the supporting cast in the picture, so just Archie. So from that's what I worked off of to come up with my idea.
So you had to put aside your love for Reggie.
Oh, yeah. Poor Reggie.
Now, did you guys who did you were approached about the variant cover, did you get the story of what this number 1 issue is or how this is going to be so different? Or are you guys as much in the dark as the rest of us?
No, I have no idea what's going to go on in the book. I'm looking forward to it as a reader as much as anybody else. So, yeah.
So, well, listen, good luck with that. And what else do you have on the horizon outside of Morning Glories, Archie?
I'm taking over Big Trouble in Little China from Boom Studios with issue 13. And that's going to be, it's like a complete 180 for Morning Glories in terms of content. So it'll be fun. It's written by Fred Van Lente, and it's very much a Valentine to the 1980s.
Yeah. Now, have you worked in any capacity with Van Lente before?
No, I've always wanted to. I was always a big fan of his Archer and Armstrong work at Valiant, and I was hoping to sort of team up with them on that, but that never came to pass. But now that we have the opportunity to work together on Big Trouble, it's really fun.
Yeah, and it'll be funny, too, given the sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I was really attracted to, because we have humor in Morning Glories, but it's always kind of mean-spirited humor. But the Big Trouble in Little China humor is definitely a lot more up my alley.
Well, our experience with Fred Van Lente, he is the only person we have interviewed on the Comics Alternative who was cooking dinner during the interview.
That is amazing. Wow.
So maybe he'll do that when, you're working with him.
All right, yeah. That sounds cool.
Well, Joe, good luck with the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm at the table of Angry Cuddles, and at the table is Stephen and Mike, the creators behind this webcomic and a podcast I've just learned. Now, I have to say that I had not heard of Angry Cuddles before I walked by your table, and I was intrigued by the fact that there's a webcomic that's also a podcast. And being a podcaster, of course, I had to ask. So not only is this an opportunity for you guys to tell our listeners what this is, but educate me. So how are things here at the con?
Oh, great. I'm having a blast.
Yeah, it's a great time. People are always happy to be smiling and everything like that.
Yeah, everybody looks great. We started as a webcomic as I mentioned to you before. We started as a webcomic and became a podcast because we had jokes that we wanted to tell, but there were conversations we wanted to have as well that are longer form than you can do in 3 panels. Mostly media, video game based, so that's the topic of our podcast usually, with a comedic slant. I mean, everything that comes from us is kind of dark humor anyway, so that's the direction we went with it.
Okay, so what is Angry Cuddles?
Okay, Angry Cuddles is besides the name of the webcomic, it is the concept of being cute and kind of uncomfortable. So the first comics were very, very dark. They involved, murderous magicians and things like that were uncomfortable things to laugh at, and that was the way we started.
Yeah, so because murderous magicians, doesn't say chuckles to me. Yeah.
You might be surprised.
Okay.
A lot of the cute comes from the art style, specifically. Our artist Joseph, he's not here today, but he sort of developed his own style of sort of cutesy, but still getting.
Yeah, it's a simplistic, like Mike said, it's a simplistic sort of cute kind of a style, but the language is adult language. Like I said, it's dark, so that contrast is what an Angry Cuddle would be.
Okay. So now, Stephen, you're the writer.
Correct. That's right.
Okay. And now, if listeners wanted to find out about this, and in fact, as they're listening to this, they're at their computer, they can pull it up. What's the web address?
angrycuddles.com.
Oh, easy enough.
Yep, exactly as easy as you want it to be.
Now, so angrycuddles.com, I'll have to check this out when I get back. Now, I want to know a little bit more about how you transitioned, not from a webcomic into a podcast, because it's still a webcomic, but I guess spawned this podcast from the webcomic. You started with an audio because you said you had more jokes to tell, but I would think that since comics are a visual medium, it didn't take long to get to video.
Part of it is not actually as planned as you might think. Part of it was that I had a whole bunch of comic ideas that I had written down, and I found an artist to work with me to create the site initially. I had been on the radio. I was on KNTU for a while, and then after I graduated, we had a show on KTCU, both university stations. And so that was what I grew up doing, was wanting to do something radio kind of based. And so when we started the site, we just wanted content for the site. It almost didn't matter what it was as long as we had stuff going up every day. So we had webcomics Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we decided to do a podcast where we could break down a lot of the jokes that we would make. We could talk about the comics that we did, either where the inspiration came from, or if we did a comic about merging Disney and Marvel the way that Steamboat Deadpool is, then we can talk about Marvel's acquisition, or Disney's acquisition of Marvel, long form.
And by the way, you were just referring to Steamboat Deadpool. They do have that strip there at the table, so maybe I'll have to take a picture of it after I talk with you guys to put up on the show notes.
Oh, you're welcome to. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the transition, or at least the spawning of the podcast.
Right. We realized that we had a lot more to talk about, and some of it was more serious than just making the jokes, but we wanted to really expound upon the effect of media, the way that people read media. I'm a big proponent of one of the things that I've been trying to do recently is trying to get local schools to teach media classes to middle school children at the latest. The same way we teach kids how to read and interpret books, they need to be learning how to read and interpret media. So that's sort of the base of the podcast, is how we interpret the games that we play and the movies that we watch and stuff. So that's essentially the base that we started from and what the purpose is of the podcast.
Okay, so in the visual podcast, so it's the video, right?
Yeah, we started our Twitch channel originally just playing video games, which is what Twitch is made for, is to play video games live, and other people can watch you play video games.
And then you can make comments about. I think my son showed that to me several months ago.
There's usually a webcam sort of up in the corner where people are talking about what they're doing while they're playing, and sometimes it's instructional, how to play Minecraft. Sometimes. What we did was we did a Mystery Science Theater. I don't know if you've heard of that show.
Oh yeah. I was a big fan.
We would riff on the games like Mystery Science Theater did with movies.
Well, in fact, so that's what I have seen. Like I said, maybe it's been about a year ago. My son was showing my wife and I something, and they were laughing their asses off one day in the kitchen. And I said, "Well, what's so funny?" And they were watching on, I don't know, the iPad or phone or something, someone playing a game, and it looked like kind of a goofy game, but what they were laughing about wasn't the game, but the comments, Mystery Science Theater type.
Yes.
So for all I know, they could have been watching what you guys were doing.
That's possible.
Yeah, maybe.
That's totally possible. We had the series, we called it Twitch Riff, because it used Twitch to play the games and we'd riff on it, like Mystery Science Theater. And then once we got the basics of streaming down, then I wanted to take the podcast visual, because you can have a chat room going on, and so we could get viewers and listeners to interact with us while we were podcasting and throwing their input in as well.
Okay, so if they wanted to see your video podcast, they go to Twitch?
Yep, at twitch.tv/Angry Cuddles.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something before I started recording about YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, I did not, and this may just be me being behind the times, but YouTube streams as well, and so I am now in the process of learning how YouTube streams and if it is different from Twitch. So there may be a time where we can simulcast on YouTube, youtube.com/Angry Cuddles, which is where the podcasts go, the pre-recorded, what becomes pre-recorded at that point, goes up. So you can go back and watch the library, the history of which right now there's 2, of the video podcasts if you don't watch them live.
Okay, so the video podcast, or you said there are 2 of them, so this is relatively new for you guys.
It's very new for us, yeah. We're still figuring it out. This last week I forgot to change the title of it, so it said we were playing some video game when we were not. Just, we don't have anybody teaching us how to do this stuff. We learn by screwing it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so go to twitch.tv/Angry Cuddles if our listeners want to see the video. And for the webcomic, it is angrycuddles.com.
Yep.
And that's angrycuddlesplural.com.
That's right.
Okay. Well, guys, listen, good luck with the rest of the con, and thanks for taking time to Talking with the Comics Alternative.
Thanks, Derek. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I am at the Stratum table, and Stratum is a company that we're going to learn a little bit about, and I am here with Vince and Mark. Now, Mark, you are the publisher of Stratum. Both of you, Vince and Mark, are the creators and writers of Threat, and so educate us. First off, tell us about Stratum.
Well, Stratum Comics were originally created so that we could publish our own book, but then Mark wanted to take it and give other people who are creators an avenue to publish and distribute their own books. So Mark is trying to really help those people who are out there trying to get a comic created, pull it together. He can coordinate getting artists, inkers, colorists together, and then can get it printed and then published and then distributed.
What kind of challenges did you face getting a new comic book brand off the ground?
It's actually really difficult. There's so many other companies out there that it's just really hard to get recognized, I guess is the best way of putting it. It's one of those where you've got, a little bit of Kool-Aid and a lot of water, and it's hard to taste that flavor. But we've been successful. We've been slowly but surely growing. People seem to keep coming back to us and looking for us when we're at shows. So, it's working out thus far. So.
And are you based out of the DFW area, or is it is in Texas, right?
It's Texas, yes. So we go to a lot of shows around Texas. I actually live in Austin, though, and my writing partner
here in Dallas.
Okay.
We were both from Houston, so we went where we had to go for our regular jobs, but we kept the story based in Texas, and the first story arc is in Houston, Texas.
And this is The Threat.
The Threat, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about The Threat. First off, how would you pitch this to the uninitiated? How would you explain it?
We like to think of it as if you saw the TV show Heroes or Future Men or whatever that was. If you took it and you put it in a Blade Runner, a Minority Report, or Judge Dredd type universe where corporations now control the majority of the world. And so there are no more governments. If they are, they're, a puppet government. And because of environmental issues, we have less space to live in. So you start concentrating groups of people in smaller area, and we let that kind of tell our story for us.
Okay, so now both of you are writers of the title, The Threat.
Yes.
And who do you use as artists?
Well, for our first 2 issues, it was a gentleman named Jordy. We went with Matthew Weldon. I don't know if you see his art here. He was with us for 3 and 4. Just 4. we were working with him on 5, and he had to back out. So we got a new artist. His name is Jose Fernandez, exceptional artist. We were able to do Comic Palooza this year. We submitted for the VIP bag with this print of our characters. They liked it so much that we were on the program guide as well.
Okay. Well, congratulations on that. Now, how many issues? You say the 5th one, is it just recently come out?
Technically, we have 4 issues out right now. Creating comics is a learning process when you're just coming into it. So we learned a few things, and we wanted to give Jose a chance. He's a brand new artist. He's never done a comic before. We wanted to give him a chance to grow as an artist. So we just, instead of having him jump in issue 5, we decided to go ahead and go back and fix some of the inconsistencies that we had with issue 1. So basically, we've got 4 issues available with a rebooted version of issue 1.
Okay, so now if listeners wanted to find the threat, where could they do so?
You can find us on stratumcomics.com. We're also available on Comixology and at a lot of the conventions around Texas. So,
okay, so you'll be at the Austin Wizard World and maybe San Antonio.
We're going to be doing Alamo and San Antonio. We don't do Wizard very often, but we do other cons in Austin. We do a lot of shows in Houston. We did all 3 of the Dallas shows last year. We're kind of bringing that back in to control costs. We're trying to focus on getting the books in stores now. We've got enough readers who are going to the comic shop saying, hey, we'd like you to carry this. So the momentum is growing for us. We're starting to get recognized. We also have had several really good reviews of our books. So with that momentum, we're hoping to get into more larger venues.
Okay. Now, how long has Stratum been out? How long has Stratum been around?
Since 2012.
Since 2012. Okay, so you have about, 3 years under your belt now. If you had some kind of advice to someone, let's say in a similar case to where you guys were 3 or 4 years ago, wanting to start a new title, wanting to start, a new publishing house, publishing company, what is something that you would tell them not to do that was a mistake that you guys did?
Don't do it at all. No, I'm kidding. I'm trying to really think of mistakes. Really make sure that you've got your story down. Really is what it is. When you're working with an artist, if you're the writers, creators of the story, and you're having to work with a separate artist, make sure that you guys are able to collaborate really well. That you're working with somebody that you're going to get along with, that will take criticism well. That's one of the biggest things I think that we find is that sometimes it's hard when our vision in our head doesn't necessarily translate to the vision that they have in their head and what they put down on paper. So then we'll have to try to rein them in a little bit to get them to do what we're really focusing on, and then it starts becoming a problem because they don't necessarily want to redo a page or redo a scene. So that's a big one, I think.
I think the largest thing that we did wrong was we came out full force. We printed 1,500 of the first issue. And we could have gone back a little bit on that, saved some money, and then also work on how you're going to fund your project. Kickstarter is a good one, having some backers, but planning out your money better. The other thing is that when you're doing a collaboration, try to find somebody local. It's really hard if your artist or inker is out of the state, because you have to try to coordinate getting together. It's really rough if you're out of the country. We have a very good colorist. He's not from the U.S., but we love his work. And William Anderson. We had 2, and that's why I always confuse him. I didn't want to say his name wrong. So talking with your people, having bi-weekly meetings until you get into a rhythm and everybody's kind of on the same page. Don't ever assume. Make sure that everybody's on that page, and just plan it out a little bit better. One thing is you're going to start out and you're going to end up doing just shows. Pick the shows that are going to give you the most impact and that you can afford. Because if you're going in, you're spending all this money on printing, then you're doing shows, you still got all these other things like paying your artist, paying your inker, paying your colorist. And you don't think about those until it's right there.
So right now, is The Threat the only title with Stratum?
Correct.
Okay. Or do you have plans for others?
We do have plans for another one. We've got our mascot Stratum Boy. That's
mascot behind you?
Mascot behind me, yeah. So we've got some plans with him. We're going to try to make that one an all-ages book so that anybody can pick it up, because that's one of the things that I think that we lack at our table is really a good all-ages book. So those will be the two main titles that we're working with right now. We've got some other plans for some other titles that we're working on, but we do have other books for sale. So, I am representing several other local Austin kind of artists. One of them's from San Antonio. We actually have a book from a couple of guys in Australia as well, and it's just more distributorship than anything else. Trying to help them when they're not able to go to shows,
so that they have a presence there. If they can't make it themselves, Mark is trying to make it where they're always in the forefront and for people. So
you guys aren't just pulling double duty as both publisher and writers of a title. You're pulling multiple duties here.
Yeah, we wear many hats. Mark wears the most. He's also the letterer on our book. We work on them together, but Mark does the actual manual work on setting up the pages and setting the letter. So we share and do a lot of the work.
Well, guys, listen, thanks for taking the time and talking with me, and good luck with the rest of the con and for The Threat and Stratum Comics as a whole.
Thank you.
And here is my conversation with Steve Epting. I begin by asking him about the kind of response he's received this year at the con.
It's going very well. Very busy all 3 days so far. I have no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah. Now, I was out here yesterday, which was Saturday, and you had a very long line. Has it been that way most of the time?
Well, it comes and goes, but it's been very steady, and floor was very crowded yesterday, I'm sure, as you know, and everybody's been great.
Now, just recently, earlier this month, in fact, I think the second volume of Velvet came out. What's been the reception of not only that particular volume, but the entire series? From your standpoint?
We've been getting great reviews. To me, it's been a success, both as far as what we were trying to do with it and the fan response and everything. So I'm glad that people seem to have followed us over from, fans of ours from Captain America, for instance, followed us over to what we're doing here with Velvet at Image.
Yeah. One of the things that won, I think, a good bit of love, and I know it impressed me, is the fact that, you guys started off the series, and then after, issue 2 or maybe it was 3, it was a little late. You guys came out with an apology. Sorry, we're a little late. And I think a lot of fans were impressed by that because they're used to series sometimes taking a long time. But, you guys were aware of that and explained things.
Well, and we're still trying to get back on the schedule. It's been a struggle. There's been several. I'm not going to go into any of the behind-the-scenes stuff, but there's been some delays that we were really out of our hands. But we are trying to get it back on track, and of course, we wanted to come out as monthly, just like everybody else does, and so we'll be doing our best to get it back on that track.
Now, you and Brubaker worked together on, of course, the Captain America stuff, the Winter Soldier. Now you're taking your collaboration into a creator-owned title with Image. What did you carry over from your work together on Marvel into Velvet?
Well, I don't know that we carried anything over other than, we had a working relationship for, must have been about 7 or 8 years at that point. And so just, it's sort of, that's the kind of thing when you're working on comics, you want to find somebody you can collaborate with that you're sympathetic with, and that you share the same vision. And since Ed and I have been working together for so long, it was a very natural thing to move over to a creative-owned thing together. And we'd been talking about it for years before it finally happened. So,
I was going to ask the genesis of Velvet.
Yeah, well, we started discussing this back in, probably around 2007 or 8, and we were both still under contract at Marvel for several more years, and we had planned as soon as we were done, we were going to do this spy book with the female lead, and which because I had told Ed I was a big Modesty Blaze fan, and so we were working on something to do together, and this was the idea he had, and I said it's fantastic.
Do you guys have a kind of even a rough idea of how many issues this will go to, how many runs, or how many narrative arcs?
No, actually, I do not know, but it's planned to be ongoing, and Ed says he's constantly coming up with new storylines that he wants to do. So, as of now, it's open-ended.
So this could be for the long haul here.
Well, that would be nice. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Anything else that you're working on other than Velvet right now?
No, it's pretty time-consuming because I'm doing pencils and inks and painted covers, and other than a few covers here and there for some other books, that's about it. That's all I really have time to work on.
Yeah. Well, right now, that's one of my favorite titles coming out from Image, and I have to say, of Captain America's run, yours are my favorite. So I want to thank you for taking the time and talking with me about Velvet, and good luck with the future work.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm at the table of Gemma Young. She is one of the creators behind Children of Eldair, which is a webcomic that's been going on for a couple of years now.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Okay, so now I just met you, and you were telling me about this webcomic, which we were discussing, maybe prime material for our webcomic episode in the months to come. But so educate me as well as our listeners about Children of Eldair.
So it's about 3 friends who are basically kidnapped from their own world and brought to a new one. And it's a fantasy world, so they have to learn how to deal with a whole new culture. And there's magic and there's monsters, and they have to find out if their friendship is strong enough to defeat flesh-eating demons.
Okay. Well, you can't go wrong with flesh-eating demons, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah. Now, you're 2 years in. How many, are you dividing things up into volumes?
So I'm working on chapter 10 right now, so we have chapters, and then the series will be 4 parts, and they'll be around, between 15 chapters per part.
Okay, so you're about 2/3 of the way through.
So I'm almost a quarter of the way through.
Okay, I thought you said 15 chapters?
Per part. So there's 4 parts.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. See, math is not my strong suit.
Yeah, 4 parts, each one having about 15 chapters.
Oh, okay. So you're a quarter of the way through. So this is going to be around for the long haul.
Yeah, and we're definitely, we're sticking to this. We're not going to go on hiatus or anything. So we're really excited to work on this project and to keep it going.
And how frequently does it come out?
Twice a week.
Wow. So now, is it a schedule like a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday?
Monday and Thursdays.
Okay. Now, have you been able, you and your co-creator's name is?
Rachel Oakes.
Rachel. So you and Rachel, have you been able, for the most part, to stay on schedule? Or are there times where things come up like life, where you have to slow down a bit?
Usually I like to keep a backlog, so the only time that I moved to once a week was after I had a baby.
Congratulations.
Thanks. That was a little while ago. So I think I went to once a week for like 2 months, and then actually right now I'm at once a week just because I've been having health problems, but we'll be back to twice a week as soon as possible.
Okay. So now you were telling me before I started recording that you guys created your own website, so you're not piggybacking on top of what someone else has created. So what is the navigability of the website?
We based it off of a lot of other web comics and chose the features that we liked the most. And because we built it ourselves, we had a lot more freedom with that. So, we have the most current page on the front page, and then we have our archives where you can choose the chapter, and it actually has a flip book. So it's almost like reading a book on the computer, and then you can just click through to that page, and if you want, you can look at the author comments or the discussions that have been going on that particular page. So we feel like it's pretty easy to navigate because of that.
Now, you mentioned responses to each installment, so readers can respond to that day's installment?
Yeah, so you can go and you can leave comments on every single page if you want.
And do you guys respond back to reader responses?
I'm not so good at it because I spend almost all my time drawing the comic, but Rachel responds to a lot of the comments, and I try to as well. So, and we actually have like a really good community where people are starting to respond to each other, which is really fun.
And please tell me that you guys, as the creators, don't give away spoilers when you respond on the site.
Really, really minor ones, if that.
Because one of the things my colleague Andy Wolverton and I, who do the webcomic show every month, we've noticed that there are some creators who can't resist the urge to say, oh, and next week, this is what we're going to do. It's like, did you really need to do that?
No, we feel like the page should carry it itself. So.
Oh, exactly.
So we can say that it's going to be awesome, but we're not going to tell you why.
Exactly. You know it's going to be awesome, so that's not a spoiler for the readers. So at about 15 chapters per part, about how much longer time-wise do you think you guys will be doing the title?
So if I keep consistently at 2 times a week, it'll probably be about 10 years.
Wow.
But I'm really hoping that as time progresses, I'm planning on opening a Patreon, and then if we make enough, then I won't have to do freelance, and I can go to 3 times a week.
Because I was going to ask if you're using services like, crowd funding services like Patreon or Kickstarter, but you're considering Patreon?
Yes, we just haven't set it up yet because I've just been busy, and we're just waiting for the readership to become large enough that we don't want to open a Patreon and have people donate but not be making enough to make it worthwhile for the community, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh, exactly. Now you already have hard copies of, is this the first chapter?
Yeah. So we have the first chapter. We bring it to conventions just as promotional pieces to show people what we're working on and the quality of the artwork. And it just it brings in a little extra money. But we're not planning on doing individual chapters as printed hard copies. We're just going to wait till we finish the first part and print it as a massive compilation.
Right, and that's what you can order or offer patrons on Patreon.
Yeah.
So we've gone this long in the conversation without me asking you about the URL. So if our listeners right now, as they're listening to this podcast, want to go to their computers or their mobile devices and begin checking out Children of Eldair, how do they do so? What's the web address?
It's pretty simple. It's eldair.com. So ELDAIR.com.
Oh, that is easy to find.
Yeah, so we try to make it as simple as possible.
Well, Gemma, thank you very much for taking the time and talking with me, and good luck with the rest of the con.
Thank you so much.
I'm sitting here with Hector Rodriguez at the Dallas Comic-Con, or I guess they call it now Fan Expo Dallas. Yeah, that's right. You had to get that in. So how's it going, Hector?
Great. It's been a huge turnout. It's been an amazing experience. This actually, I've done this for about 4 years.
So do you find this a more well-attended convention than the ones in the past in Dallas?
It has. It's gotten a lot of media exposure, as well as, within mainstream, we have a lot of, the big superheroes are a huge thing now, of course, and so they're becoming more mainstream instead of just being a hush-hush or, type only for geeks and nerds, quote-unquote.
That's right. So now I am not familiar with El Paso Hero, which is your title. So one of the things I'd like for you to do is describe things for me, educate me, but also to our listeners, what is El Paso Hero? Give us the lowdown.
Right, El Paso Hero deals with a superhero dealing with immigration, border violence.
Oh, I'm sorry, I said El Paso. It's El Paso. El Paso Hero, excuse me.
No, that's perfectly correct. It's El Paso Hero, and it deals with border issues, corruption on both sides, all the social aspects. A lot of there's social commentary, of course, within each book.
So it's a very socially conscious superhero title.
Correct. So El Paso Hero, he kind of when I introduced El Paso Hero to newcomers, to new readers, he kind of resembles Luke Cage. In powers wise, he's well grounded, super tough skin. He gets knocked around, but he's not overpowered or anything crazy.
So now, how did you come up with the idea of El Paso Hero?
Well, I grew up in Eagle Pass, Texas, in the border. And growing up, my dad followed comic books. He's a military guy, so he followed Sergeant Rock, Captain America, and we were in the border, so we also, there was a lot of the Mexican culture, of course, in Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass, with luchadores, El Santo, Chapulín Colorado, Calimán, a lot of Mexican superheroes, and those were heroes of their own time. As growing up, there was I had no connection to any Latino, Hispanic, Mexican superhero, and so I created one in my own head with a lot of issues. You know, I always wonder what would a superhero do to combat cartel violence or, you know, corruption along the border. You know, and so I envision somebody with a very Northern Mexican cultural look, boots, big belt buckle, you know, just norteño culture embodied into a superhero.
So you both writer and artist. Is this a solo artist or solo creator endeavor?
Right. Well, I'm the creator and I'm the writer, and I'm also the artist for issues 1 and 2. And I've gotten so much demand and so much press that I've exported my artistic duties to other artists in Mexico and Argentina, as well as some local Dallas, Fort Worth artists too. So it's been a great experience. It's being small press is very challenging. You're in a one-man army, and we're growing. So I mean, we'll see what everything brings.
So how many issues are out now?
Right now we have 5 books, 5 issues 1, 2, and 3, and we have 2 origin stories. And our goal is to have a total of 9 books, 3 origin stories, and 6 issues within volume 1. And also right now there's an independent movie being produced.
I'm sorry?
An independent movie being produced. We have a director, Edgar Rodriguez, he's my brother. He works with local directors. He works with the local cinema in Dallas. And also we have Billy Blair, which he's been Machete 2 and Sin City 2. Also Edgar Arriola, which he's been in Machete 2, Two Guns, and also the upcoming movie with Benicio del Toro, Sicario. So these guys are super talented, been involved in Rob Rodriguez movies, and we feel very privileged that they're part of our own independent movies.
So you haven't been around that long, and already you have movie interest.
Right. It's just a natural progression, you know. And we've with the media, I say that last year we went viral, and we were featured in countless press sites, Huffington Post, MSNBC Latino, CNN, as well as some international news agencies, El País, Spain, Italy, Brazil, Argentina.
Now, I see that you have on your table, and I can't see it from this angle, but you do have a press clipping. So to demonstrate you guys are getting a lot of media attention.
Right, that's a clipping from Dallas Morning News. And so it's giving us a lot of great opportunities to invite new readers into the story. It's a great story. And a lot of people feel connected to it. It's almost an immigrant story, but I said it's sending a message that, you know, we're a superhero defending immigrants.
So now I'm curious, when you started to come up with this idea of El Paso Hero, which came first? The desire to do something in the superhero genre, or the desire to do something that's very socially conscious, or were they just part and parcel of the same impulse?
It was a socially conscious decision, because I remember it was in 2003 when I created the story. I wrote the script with various ideas and how within the Texas-Mexican border in general between U.S. and Mexico, it's a whole different world. It's a crossroads of worlds, and there's a lot of even the music, the people, the language, the foods are all very different. Even within Mexico, the northern Mexican culture is different than the rest of Mexico.
Well, you know, for many, this is a hot button issue. Do you, in the comic, confront head-on some of these issues of the border, immigration, at least in terms of the United States perspective? Stay out of our country, we need the wall, and all that stuff. In other words, the right wing that really uses this as a fundraising ploy. I mean, you can tell my political leanings here.
Right. Well, we haven't been in Fox News, so
and congratulations on that.
Thanks. And so within issue 2, we have El Paso Hero helping cross immigrants across Mexico and Texas, and that alone is a very controversial issue, which is a superhero doing this, which is very controversial on its own right. And he comes across border militiamen, and they're there. I try to write as neutral as possible. I do have conservative fans as well. I have border agent fans as well that follow El Paso Hero, and so I try to stay middle, moderate as possible. And at the same time, I'm just laying it out how it actually is, and they can make their own opinion.
Any plans on having the hero, let's say, punch Bill O'Reilly in the face?
Actually, I have, I don't know, maybe somebody like Ann Coulter later.
In fact, she's probably a better target than Bill O'Reilly.
Right. Bill O'Reilly is just a closet immigrant like everybody.
Yeah, very, very good. And I'm reminded of something that I guess it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, or maybe it was Eleanor. Now I'm blanking. When it was Franklin when he addressed, I think, Daughters of the American Revolution as dear fellow immigrants.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I have quotes from Benito Juarez, which he's basically the Abraham Lincoln of Mexico. That being respectful towards everybody and their ideals, regardless of where they stand, but being respectful toward your fellow human brother. And so I like to I also have a quote on my first issue that ignorance stems from that fear stems from ignorance. That's a quote I got from I'm sorry, I totally blanked out. Famous American writer. We're gonna edit this, right?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Hey, blanking, during the recording goes on all the time with me, so that's okay. But no. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. So, but now, currently, what is the most recent issue?
Right now, well, we have issue 3, and also El Paso Hero Battle for Nuevo Laredo. And issue 3 is great because we introduced a major character, which is El Grito, which he's the national Mexican superhero, sponsored by the Mexican government. And so a lot of readers are trying to figure out, is he good or bad? So they have to read to find out. And also we have Battle for Nuevo Laredo, which is the second part of the origin issue. Great story, action-packed, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, so to find this comic, is it available in local comic shops, or would it be better for our listeners to, especially outside of various areas of Texas, to find it online?
You can go to you can find that and the teaser trailer for the independent movie web series. Also, the teaser for the radio novella that's being produced in Mexico. You can find that on RioBravoComics.com.
So RioBravoComics, one word.com.
Correct. And also, like us on Facebook, share. Social media is really huge for us. Twitter, Instagram, we appreciate it. All that.
Okay, so there are a lot of ways that people can get in touch with you, and they can, if they go to that website, they can get issues. They can order issues.
Correct. They can order issues. Also, right now we're in the process of being distributed by Comixology. That's another. If you're looking for a digital copy, Comixology will be a way to go.
Right. So it's on Comixology now.
It's being. We were accepted. Now it's in the process of being released.
Okay, so soon it'll be on Comixology as well. So you're going to get more exposure that way, online, in comic shops, and you're getting a lot of media attention. So Hector, listen, thank you very much for taking the time and talking with us, and good luck with the rest of the Fan Expo.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, come back.
I'm here with Ella and Natalie, and at the table of Furry Experience. So this is a webcomic, correct?
Yeah, that's a webcomic. It updates twice a week.
Okay. What days do you update it usually?
Every Monday and Friday.
Okay. Now, we were talking right before we started the recording that I wasn't familiar with the webcomic. In fact, vast majority of webcomics I'm not familiar with. So this is an opportunity for you not only to educate me on Furry Experience, but also our listeners who I know very interested in webcomics. So how would you describe Furry Experience to the uninitiated?
Well, Furry Experience is a comic... Furry Experience is a comic about 3 college roommates who are... going to school in Utah Valley. And it really follows their daily adventures of what could only happen in Utah. There's discussions about religion, there's adventures with some of the Utah scenery and Utah culture, and interacting with other furries as well.
So it's very geographically centered, I guess.
I would say more culturally centered, but I also like taking inspiration from the different mountain areas and the different parks, and it's where I grew up, so it's fun drawing the neighborhoods that I grew up in.
Well, how did you come up with the idea of the comic?
Well, I was introduced to the furry fandom by my now husband, actually. He showed me some of his favorite comics that were furry related. I was really impressed with the idea of using simplistic cartoons to tell more complex stories, and I wanted to try creating one of my own.
So basically, you're working with, you're calling them furries, but it's like anthropomorphic. It's in that tradition of the anthropomorphic characters.
Yeah, the anthropomorphic characters and furry characters, they are what inspired this comic, and so making a comic about them and about where I grew up, is what came out of that.
Now, is this an all-age comic?
I do try to keep it safe for work. I avoid showing anything inappropriate or drug-related or that sort of thing. But it is a comic that features 3 girls in college, so the humor is a bit more complex, and there is discussions about about the college culture in a more conservative community and how that conflicts with college culture in other areas of the country.
And the reason I ask is because, and we can show images of Furry Experience in the show notes of this episode, the art is very friendly, and it looks... and I don't mean this in a negative way, but cartoony, something that a young reader would really gravitate toward. In fact, as we were talking, I noticed 1 or 2 people coming up and going, oh, look at them. And they're very attractive looking characters. And so that's why I wondered, is it all age? Is it for younger? But still there's a long tradition there of kind of the cute art having very serious undertones in the storylines.
Yeah, I think that kids would enjoy reading it, but there is discussions of college and more adult life. I'm not sure how relatable it would be. I like putting together collections that kids would enjoy, and I like putting together collections that teenagers and college students would enjoy.
Okay, so you say putting together collections. Now, this is primarily a webcomic, or at least originally a webcomic, but I do see that you have hard copy collections here.
Yeah, there's different story arcs that go throughout. There's 5 years of story arcs to go to. That's a lot to commit and read to at once when you're starting out. And so there's a collection of the first year of comics that we're selling, and there's a collection of just showing later versions of the roommates themselves interacting, watching Saturday morning cartoons, and arguing about whose turn it is to do dishes, and more fun stuff like that.
So how long has this been going on? How long do you have the comic?
I've been working on the comic for over 6 years now. It's been online for 5 years.
Okay. So now, in sustaining the comic, how do you do so? Do you use a crowd funding source like Patreon, or do you have sponsors? I always wonder how webcomic creators do it.
Originally, when I started out, I was just doing everything as cheaply as I possibly could. I got a free account at Smack Jeeves. I still use copy paper and colored pencils and that sort of thing. And as it's gotten bigger, I have recently started doing crowdfunding and Patreon, and commission work has also been helping out a lot too.
And going to cons, does that really help with the exposure?
I actually don't go to too many cons. A lot of the interaction and commission orders come through online.
Now, in the online comic, is there a space for readers to respond, to ask questions, to place comments?
Yeah, there's a forum that's I love the people who are on the forum. They're awesome. I also have social media on Facebook and Twitter where I get questions as well. And because it was inspired by the furry fandom, I have reached out to the furry community a lot for sharing with them, and going to furry-specific social media websites has really helped grow the readership.
Now, how would you define a furry?
If you ask 10 people what a furry means, you'll get 10 different answers. The most basic answer everyone can agree on is you're a fan of stories featuring animals.
Okay.
And so if I were to pick a definition that's more geared to what I think furry is, I think it was, like I said earlier, simplistic animal characters and cartoons telling more complex stories.
Okay. So now you have a Patreon account, and if people wanted to find out about that, I mean, they could go to the website, but what is the web address for both, let's say, Furry Experience and your Patreon account? Okay,
Furry Experience is furryexperience.com, and the Patreon account is it's patreon.com/EllenNatalie. But furryexperience.com, there's a big orange button for Patreon on there as well.
So they can't miss it.
They can't miss it, no.
Yeah. So what are the future plans in terms of specific story arcs with Furry Experience?
Well, I'm looking forward to doing a talk. The main character named Kat is going to have to give a talk in sacrament meeting at her church after dodging it for 6 years. And so that's going to be fun. I'm also looking forward to currently there's an arc going on featuring the siblings of the main characters, and they're having a high school love triangle drama, which has been fun to do. I don't think a love triangle will work anywhere better than a high school.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much for taking the time and talking with us, and Ellen, enjoy the rest of the con.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wow, Derek, you really did get to talk to some really, really interesting people during your time at the convention. That's great.
Yeah, and exactly. This was a lot of people, and it was over a 2-day period. And even over 2 days, it was kind of exhausting walking around all that time and finding people when they were available. So, for instance, I approached Steve Epting on Saturday, but he was very busy, as you might expect. He had a very long line at his table. But early today on Sunday, and we're recording this right after getting back from the con, he did have a little time to talk with me for a few minutes, and so I appreciate that. And there were other creators that I wanted to speak with, but I couldn't because they had a lot of their fans. I really wanted to get a joint conversation with Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, but as you can imagine, with the runaway success of Harley Quinn, their line was just unbelievable. Now, I stood in their line, and I had both of them sign my hardback version of the first trade. So I did speak with them. They were very kind. They said if we wanted to talk with them separately, maybe, call them up, they'd be up for that. But they're a couple, and I've spoken with both of them for the podcast before and on location shows. Very friendly, very accessible, and very fan aware. And I know that they didn't want to take away from speaking with the other fans there, taking like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so talking with me for the podcast. But they're really good people. Sorry that they were so busy. But hey, they're successful creators. What do you expect?
Yeah, and Derek, I had the same experience both at SPX and at the Baltimore convention too. There's just so little time, and the creators that are really, really popular or really, really hot right now, it's just tough to get any time with them. So anything you can get is great. And it sounds like even though you didn't get to spend as much time with those guys as you'd like, you got some great stuff.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things I always try to do when I go to these kind of cons, the Dallas or Wizard World cons or Heroes Con, wherever, is I like to mix things up. So not only do I like to interview the bigger names that our listeners might recognize, but I also like to talk to creators that not only our listeners may not know of, but I'm not even aware of before I actually meet these guys, because I pass by their tables and what they're doing seems very interesting to me. So I want to learn, like, for instance, El Peso Hero. I'd heard about this. Someone had mentioned this to me, one of the organizers of Fan Expo. They said, oh, you ought to check out this guy called Hector Rodriguez. And so I passed his table, and I thought, I'm not aware of this, but I want to check it out. So my conversation with him was not only a way for him to share his comic with everyone who listens to the podcast, but to also, introduce me to what he does as well. So I like that.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah. So I had a really good time at Fan Expo Dallas, and I want to thank the people at Fan Expo for giving me a press pass to get in all weekend long and to interview the creators. So I had a great time. And if you want to find out about some of the comics that are created by many of the people that I talked with, then you can pre-order those through our sponsor, and that is Discount Comic Book Service. So their website is dcbservice.com. Go there, and you will find incredible discounts. You'll be scratching your head as to how can they do it. I don't know how, but they do it. They work their magic. And then after you do pre-order your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what kind of things that you're going to be reading. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you will find on the right-hand side of your browser a tab that says Send Voicemail. Click on that, and from the comfort of your own desktop or mobile device, you can leave a message through the wonders of SpeakPipe. It's just that simple. Or if you want to be difficult about it, pick up the phone and give us a call the old-fashioned way. Our phone number is 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
And if you would like to keep up with the news of what's going on with the podcast and on the blog, you can join us on Twitter. We are at the number 2 guys with PhDs, and we appreciate everyone who favors our tweets and retweets our tweets.
That's right. You can also email us, as many of you do. You can email the podcast at 2guys@comicsalternative.com. You can contact me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. And Andy, how do they get in touch with you directly?
You can contact me at wolverton@comicsalternative.com.
You can also find us on Facebook, on Tumblr, on Instagram, and on Google+. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on TuneIn. And you can find every single one of our episodes, as well as our reviews and comics-related commentary that we put up on our blog at the website, comicsalternative.com.
That's right. You can find us all kinds of ways. You can barely turn around without bumping into us.
That's right, and we like to be bumped into.
That's right.
So please bump into us. And until next time, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy.
We'll see you later.
Tina, come get some ham.